In the intricate landscape of modern life, where messages about who we should be are constant and often contradictory, embracing our authentic self is both a revolutionary act and a deeply necessary one. Brené Brown's work emphasizes that refusing to negotiate who you are begins with the willingness to understand, accept, and embrace yourself fully, without apology, without compromise, and without reservation. Authenticity is not something that can be switched on temporarily or selectively applied to certain situations. It is a deliberate practice, a conscious commitment to live in alignment with your values, beliefs, and the truth of your identity. In a culture that often equates worth with achievement, appearance, or social validation, choosing authenticity requires courage and persistence. It demands that we look inward, confront the ways we hide ourselves, and challenge the external pressures that seek to shape us into someone we are not. The first step in this journey is cultivating self-awareness. Understanding who you are at your core necessitates a deep examination of the masks, personas, and protective mechanisms you have adopted throughout life. These masks, whether the overachiever striving for perfection, the caretaker constantly prioritizing others' needs, the people pleaser who fears rejection, or the stoic individual who never allows vulnerability, often serve as survival strategies in response to fear or shame. Brown emphasizes that recognizing these patterns is not an act of self-criticism, but one of curiosity. By asking questions like, what am I hiding? Why do I feel the need to hide it? Which parts of myself am I denying in order to be accepted? We create a space for introspection that is essential to understanding our authentic selves. These questions do not have easy answers, and the exploration can be uncomfortable, yet it is the foundation for refusing to compromise who we are. Authenticity, Brown teaches, is inseparable from courage. Being true to ourselves does not mean we are invulnerable, confident, or free from doubt. Rather, it means that we are willing to show up even when we feel uncertain, flawed, or unworthy. Vulnerability, the willingness to be seen as we truly are, including our imperfections, is central to this courage. This vulnerability is not weakness. It is a declaration that our worth is intrinsic, not contingent upon external validation or the approval of others. Choosing authenticity often involves difficult decisions. Saying no to requests that conflict with our values, setting boundaries to protect our time and energy, and speaking truths that may feel risky in relationships or professional contexts. It is in these moments that the courage to be ourselves is most evident. And Brown's research demonstrates that the practice of showing up authentically fosters resilience, self-respect, and meaningful connections. Moreover, refusing to negotiate who we are requires a critical awareness of the cultural and societal pressures that influence our sense of self. From an early age, we are inundated with messages about how we should look, behave, perform, and relate to others. These pressures often encourage conformity, and attempting to meet them can lead to chronic stress, anxiety, and a persistent sense of disconnection from our own identity. By contrast, those who practice authenticity and honor their true selves report a stronger sense of purpose, increased confidence, and a deeper capacity for joy and fulfillment. Brown's work highlights that embracing authenticity is not merely a personal choice, but also a social one. By modeling the courage to live without compromise, we create a space in which others feel empowered to embrace their own truths. Community and connection are also essential components of authentic living. Being authentic does not mean isolating ourselves or rejecting all feedback. It means cultivating relationships and environments in which our true selves are welcomed and valued. Surrounding ourselves with people who honor our boundaries, celebrate our uniqueness, and encourage our growth reinforces the practice of authenticity. At the same time, Engaging with those who demand conformity or who diminish our sense of self serves as a reminder of the importance of standing firm in our identity and protecting the integrity of who we are. The balance lies in discerning when to engage, when to establish boundaries, and when to step away from situations that require us to compromise our core values. Ultimately, embracing your authentic self is a continuous, evolving process. It requires constant self-reflection, courage to remain vulnerable, and commitment to living in alignment with your inner truth. It involves questioning deeply ingrained habits, societal expectations, and internalized fears while simultaneously cultivating self-compassion and resilience. Each act of authenticity, no matter how small, contributes to a life lived with integrity and alignment. Once we begin the journey of embracing our authentic self, the next essential step is learning to set boundaries. Brené Brown emphasizes that refusing to negotiate who we are is not only about understanding and accepting ourselves, it is equally about protecting the integrity of that self in the world. Boundaries are the invisible lines that define where we end and others begin. They are not barriers to connection. Rather, they are the structures that allow us to engage meaningfully with others while remaining true to our values. Without boundaries, our sense of self can become diluted, compromised, or entirely overshadowed by the expectations and demands of others. Setting boundaries is, therefore, an act of self-respect, courage, and preservation. Boundaries begin with clarity. To enforce them, we first need to identify what we value, what we will accept, and what feels intolerable in our relationships, work, and social environments. Brown points out that many people struggle with this step because they fear rejection, conflict, or disapproval. The fear of saying no can be paralyzing, especially in cultures or communities that reward people pleasing and self-sacrifice. Yet, boundaries are not about being rigid or punitive. They are about honoring what is important to us and communicating those limits clearly and respectfully. Knowing your boundaries requires introspection, understanding your emotional, mental, and physical needs, and acknowledging that protecting those needs is not selfish. It is essential for maintaining your authenticity. Once identified, boundaries must be communicated. Brown stresses that vague or inconsistent boundaries invite misunderstanding and erode our sense of self. Communicating them effectively requires both courage and clarity. This can be as simple as saying, "I need time to recharge and cannot take on additional work this week," or as direct as, "I cannot engage in conversations that are disrespectful or dismissive." In both personal and professional contexts, establishing boundaries signals to others that we are committed to living in alignment with our values. It also models behavior for those around us, demonstrating that everyone deserves to have their limits recognized and respected. Boundaries are not static. They require vigilance and reinforcement. People will test limits, whether intentionally or unconsciously, and maintaining them can feel uncomfortable at times. Brown emphasizes that discomfort is a natural part of living authentically. If maintaining a boundary feels easy all the time, it may indicate that we are compromising ourselves without realizing it. Each moment in which we honor our boundaries, especially under pressure, reinforces our self-respect and strengthens our internal sense of integrity. Conversely, ignoring or compromising boundaries repeatedly leads to resentment, stress, and the gradual erosion of our authenticity. An essential part of boundary setting is understanding the difference between responsibility and ownership. Brown notes that we are responsible for ourselves, our words, actions, and emotional well-being, but we are not responsible for other people's reactions to our boundaries. Attempting to control how others respond often leads to negotiation of our core self. Boundaries are about defining what is acceptable and what is not about controlling others. By embracing this distinction, we protect ourselves from the burden of others' approval while maintaining alignment with our values. Additionally, boundaries extend to time, energy, and focus. Saying yes to everything diminishes our ability to say yes to what truly matters. Protecting our energy allows us to prioritize activities, relationships, and commitments that support our authentic lives. Brown emphasizes that boundary setting is deeply tied to self-compassion. When we value ourselves enough to enforce limits, we reinforce the message that our time, energy, and emotional well-being matter. Ultimately, Keynote 2 reinforces the connection between authenticity and integrity. Embracing who we are is meaningless if we allow external pressures to push us into compromise. Boundaries ensure that our values, priorities, and needs are protected in every interaction and decision. By learning to set, communicate, and maintain them, we lay the foundation for living a life that is true, empowered, and deeply aligned with our authentic selves. After embracing authenticity and setting boundaries, the next essential step in refusing to negotiate who we are is cultivating the courage to speak our truth. Brené Brown emphasizes that authenticity without expression is incomplete. To live fully in alignment with our values, we must not only understand ourselves and protect our integrity, but also communicate openly and honestly. Speaking one's truth is not always comfortable. It often challenges social norms, confronts power dynamics, and risks rejection or criticism. Yet, Brown's research shows that courage is a skill that can be cultivated, and using that courage to voice our truth strengthens our self-respect, fosters genuine connection, and allows others to see us fully and accurately. Speaking the truth begins with clarity about what matters most. To communicate authentically, we must first understand our values, beliefs, and priorities. Brown emphasizes that clarity is the anchor for courageous communication. It prevents us from negotiating or diluting our message to appease others. When we know what is non-negotiable in our lives, we can express it confidently. This clarity also requires self-reflection, understanding not only what we want to say, but why it matters, what boundaries it upholds, and how it aligns with the authentic self we are committed to honoring. Without this clarity, our words may be tentative, inconsistent, or compromised, undermining both our message and our sense of integrity. Courageous communication also demands vulnerability. Speaking the truth requires exposing parts of ourselves that may be judged, misunderstood, or dismissed. Brown consistently highlights that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a source of strength. By risking discomfort, we assert that our voice matters and that our experience is valid. This willingness to be seen is essential because it allows others to engage with the real us, rather than a curated or defensive version shaped by fear. Vulnerability in communication also deepens connection. When we speak honestly, it encourages reciprocity, creating a space where others feel safe to share their truths as well. Another key aspect of speaking one's truth is practicing discernment. Courageous communication is not about unfiltered expression. It is about choosing the right time, place, and context to be heard effectively. Brown emphasizes that intention and empathy matter. Speaking the truth is most powerful when it is delivered thoughtfully, respectfully, and aligned with the purpose of fostering understanding, resolution, or personal alignment. Discernment allows us to protect our relationships and ensure that our authenticity does not inadvertently harm others or ourselves. It balances the need for honesty with the wisdom of timing and tone. Resisting the urge to negotiate our truth requires consistent practice and self-trust. Social pressure, fear of conflict, and desire for acceptance often tempt us to remain silent or modify our message. Brown emphasizes that each time we choose to speak up, even in small ways, we reinforce our commitment to ourselves and our values. This repeated practice builds confidence and resilience, making it easier to navigate situations where honesty feels risky. Over time, courage becomes habitual, and speaking our truth becomes less about confrontation and more about alignment with our authentic self. Finally, Brown reminds us that courageous communication is both a personal and relational act. It strengthens the integrity of our self-concept while fostering trust, clarity, and authenticity in our relationships. By speaking our truth, we establish a standard: our voice matters, our values matter, and we refuse to compromise them for temporary comfort or external approval. This keynote builds directly on the foundations of authenticity and boundaries, demonstrating that understanding who we are and protecting our integrity are only fully realized when we express ourselves openly and courageously in the world. After embracing authenticity, setting boundaries, and cultivating the courage to speak our truth, the next crucial step in refusing to negotiate who we are is practicing resilience. Brené Brown emphasizes that living authentically and refusing to compromise our identity inevitably invites discomfort. It may come in the form of criticism, misunderstanding, conflict, or even rejection. Resilience, therefore, is the skill that allows us to remain grounded and steadfast in the face of these challenges, ensuring that external pressures do not erode the integrity of our authentic self. Brown's research consistently demonstrates that resilience is not an innate trait. It is a practice cultivated through awareness, self-compassion, and the deliberate choice to remain connected to one's values even under stress. Resilience begins with emotional awareness. To respond effectively to discomfort, we must first recognize and name our emotions. Brown emphasizes that acknowledging fear, shame, anger, or sadness is not a sign of weakness, but a prerequisite for adaptive response. When we deny or suppress these feelings, they accumulate and can distort our perception of ourselves and our interactions with others. By facing them directly, we gain clarity about what is happening, why it matters, and how to respond in alignment with our authentic self. This awareness enables us to distinguish between constructive feedback and unwarranted criticism, between challenges that encourage growth and pressures that demand compromise. Self-compassion is another cornerstone of resilience. Brown highlights that resisting the urge to negotiate who we are can be exhausting and emotionally taxing. Practicing self-compassion means treating ourselves with the same care, understanding, and patience we would offer a close friend. It allows us to recover from setbacks without internalizing them as failures or threats to our worth. This is especially important because the path of authenticity often involves trial and error. Setting boundaries that are initially ignored, speaking truths that are misunderstood, and asserting our values in ways that provoke discomfort. Self-compassion ensures that these experiences are seen as opportunities for growth rather than personal shortcomings. Resilience also requires reframing discomfort as a sign of progress rather than a signal to retreat. Brown emphasizes that discomfort is inherent to personal growth. When we are challenged, questioned, or even rejected for standing firm in our identity, it indicates that we are pushing beyond societal expectations and testing the limits of our own courage. Rather than interpreting this discomfort as a failure, we can view it as evidence that we are living authentically, asserting our values, and refusing to negotiate the core of who we are. This shift in perspective transforms challenges into opportunities to strengthen our resolve and deepen our understanding of ourselves. Another key element of resilience is the ability to maintain perspective. Brown suggests that maintaining connection to our purpose, values, and long-term vision allows us to navigate short-term discomfort without losing sight of the bigger picture. When faced with criticism, misunderstanding, or resistance, we can ask ourselves, does compromising my identity serve my goals? Does it align with my values? Will it move me closer to the life I want to live? These questions help anchor us, providing a framework for responding thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. Finally, practicing resilience is inherently relational. Brown emphasizes that cultivating supportive connections is essential for sustaining courage and authenticity. Surrounding ourselves with people who encourage our growth, honor our boundaries, and celebrate our truth reinforces our ability to withstand external pressures. At the same time, learning to navigate relationships that challenge or resist our authenticity builds resilience by testing and strengthening our commitment to ourselves. Through these experiences, resilience becomes not only an individual skill, but also a relational practice, deepening our connection to both ourselves and the communities that support us. Having embraced authenticity, established boundaries, cultivated courage, and practiced resilience, the final keynote in Brené Brown's "Do Not Negotiate Who You Are" focuses on living fully in alignment with your values. This keynote is about taking all the inner work, the self-awareness, courage, and resilience, and integrating it into every aspect of your life so that your decisions, actions, and relationships reflect who you truly are. Brown emphasizes that living authentically is not a partial or occasional practice. It is a lifelong commitment to aligning every part of your life with your deeply held beliefs and values. Living in alignment begins with clarity about what truly matters. Brown stresses that values are the guiding principles that shape our actions, decisions, and interactions. To refuse to negotiate who you are, you must first identify your core values, the non-negotiables that define your identity and purpose. These may include integrity, compassion, courage, creativity, connection, or honesty. Clarifying these values provides a compass that guides behavior, ensuring that we do not drift into patterns of conformity or compromise. When we understand what matters most, we can make choices that consistently reflect our authentic self rather than reacting passively to external pressures or expectations. Once values are clear, living in alignment requires intentional action. It is not enough to simply know your values. They must be enacted through daily decisions and behaviors. Brown highlights that small, consistent choices often have the greatest cumulative impact. Saying no to obligations that violate our boundaries, speaking honestly in difficult conversations, prioritizing self-care, or advocating for fairness and justice in our communities are all practical expressions of living in alignment. Each of these acts reinforces our identity and strengthens our capacity to navigate life without compromising our integrity. Over time, these decisions build a sense of coherence and purpose that fuels confidence and fulfillment. An essential aspect of this keynote is the integration of courage, vulnerability, and resilience. Brown's work shows that fully living in alignment requires the ongoing willingness to be seen as you are, to face discomfort, and to navigate challenges without surrendering your core identity. There will always be moments when external pressures, societal expectations, or internal doubts tempt us to negotiate our values for convenience, acceptance, or temporary relief. In these moments, courage is critical. It is the force that enables us to choose alignment over appeasement, truth over compromise, and integrity over convenience. Resilience allows us to recover when we falter, learn from setbacks, and continue moving forward without diminishing our sense of self. Living in alignment also deepens our connections with others. Brown emphasizes that when we act in accordance with our values, we attract relationships that are authentic, supportive, and mutually respectful. People are drawn to those who live consistently and courageously because authenticity fosters trust, clarity, and respect. Conversely, relationships built on compromise or inauthenticity often create tension, disconnection, or resentment. By modeling integrity and authenticity, we not only honor our own identity, but also create an environment in which others feel empowered to live authentically as well. Another critical element is the courage to make difficult choices. Living fully in alignment may require saying no, leaving relationships or situations that undermine your values, or challenging systems and norms that conflict with your principles. Brown emphasizes that these decisions, while often uncomfortable, are vital for maintaining integrity. They are acts of self-respect and self-preservation, affirming that your life belongs to you and that your identity cannot be negotiated for approval, comfort, or convenience. Choosing alignment over compromise is a daily practice, a conscious decision made repeatedly in small and large ways throughout life. Finally, living fully in alignment is about embracing the totality of life with intention, courage, and wholeheartedness. It is the culmination of all the previous keynotes: embracing your authentic self, setting boundaries, speaking your truth, and practicing resilience. Brown's message is clear: when we refuse to negotiate who we are, we create a life of integrity, purpose, and connection. Every action, every decision, and every relationship becomes an opportunity to honor our values and live meaningfully. The freedom and power that come from this commitment are transformative. They allow us to navigate life confidently, contribute authentically, and experience fulfillment on a level that superficial conformity or external approval can never provide. In conclusion, Brené Brown's 5 keynotes offer a roadmap for refusing to negotiate who we are, embracing authenticity, protecting our integrity, speaking our truth, cultivating resilience, and living fully in alignment with our values. Together, they provide a powerful framework for creating a life of courage, connection, and meaningful engagement with the world. By committing to this path, we declare that our identity is non-negotiable, our values are sacred, and our lives are ours to live fully, unapologetically, and authentically.